Lion District Governor has given me the distinct honor of making this presentation on enabling club development, a needed paradigm shift in district and club leadership. Club development has always been my passion, and I'm seeking to enlist the support not only of the current district governor, but of the incoming district and club leadership teams for an initiative to address this very important initiative in our district. So, moving right along. Lion, Wendy, are you seeing my screen? Okay. One of the things I hope to convey in this particular short presentation, this presentation is really a little more than 20 minutes long, but so I'll be whispering through some slides and concentrating on some others as I make this particular presentation. First, I want to talk a little bit about managing clubs. There are three leadership functions involved in managing clubs. They are club development, club improvement, and club operations. So what's club development? Club development is rebuilding and strengthening the foundation for club functioning. What does that involve? That involves redefining and reaffirming the kind of club members want to create, deciding where the club wants to be in the future, and deciding how to get there. I don't know how many of you in your clubs have ever actually sat down from the routine of regular meetings to address these questions. But these are club building questions. And they are club building questions because clubs need to agree on certain fundamentals. And I'll tell you a little bit, these are some of the fundamentals, but I'll break them down for you as I go through the presentation. Club improvement speaks to making tactical adjustments to keep clubs on track. It means to deal with performance failures, health risks, internal conflicts, etc. And you address problems that take the club off course. So that's what club improvement does. And then we have basically club operations. Club operations is basically carrying out the activities that are part of the annual operating cycle of the club. That is, we perform certain administrative and operating functions that are part of the administrative cycle, and there's a focus on producing mission-related outcomes, service projects, and that sort of stuff. So those are three fundamental functions relating to the management of a club. Now, how do Lions leaders see their role? For the most part, leaders do not see their primary role as one of building and developing clubs, ensuring that the necessary foundation for club functioning is healthy and sound. They do not see this as their role, primarily. They see their primary role as long as performing annual operating routines and administering clubs to produce mission-related outcomes. So basically, the whole matter of building clubs and strengthening clubs is not something that gets the attention of most leaders, whether at the district level or at the club level. So what's the foundation for club building? What is this all about? There are certain key principles that create the necessary conditions or building blocks for members to work together. Remember that the ability of any group to work together is not simply based upon the principles themselves. It is the shared understanding and agreement. People work together when they agree on things, when they hold the same head, when they're on the same page. So there's a set of shared understandings or agreement by members on the need to remain faithful and the need to remain faithful on those principles. In my own vocabulary, I refer to these things as first principles. So, and you know these things. The fact is we don't necessarily revisit them, but what is our purpose? That is usually expressed in our mission statement. How will we govern ourselves? constitutional bylaws usually addresses this question. Now, these are the key principles for building a club that we don't often pay a lot of attention to because we're involved in the day-to-day routines of actually running clubs. How do we see ourselves as a club? What kind of club will we be? This is usually expressed in your vision statement and your core values and other kind of criteria that speaks to what kind of club do we really want to be. You step back from the day-to-day routine and you ask, what are some of the attributes that we'd like our club to have? We don't pay a lot of attention to these kinds of questions. Where will we be in the future? Example, 5 years. These are the focus areas for development and strategic goals. And how will we get there? There's the policies and guidelines, key success factors, action plans, and annual implementation plans. So why is club development necessary? Club development is necessary because there is a breakdown over time in the commitment to shared agreements on first principles. Usually when a club is formed, there's a kind of a coming together of members. There is quite a shared understanding. They work together, they're close-knit, etc. Very few conflicts, etc. But over time, as members come and go, it breaks down. And this shared commitment is not there anymore. So there's a diminished capability in terms of people being ready, willing, and able to work together productively to produce the desired outcomes. This diminished capability is a result of risk to club health. These health risks often become entrenched in clubs as the accepted way of doing things. And as we do a lot of stuff that are not necessarily in the best interest for clubs, but they become entrenched because they become part of the club culture. And these things are referred to as norms. That's just a psychological term to basically say we adopt certain practices and they become entrenched in clubs. So the internal workings of passive do not work together the way they should to support a common or shared purpose. And sources of influence within and outside of clubs send conflicting messages and direction on club guidance. Everybody in line is an expert. And so we have all these experts all saying different things about what is best for clubs. So we have district governors saying different things. I'm yet to see 2 district governors in succession focus on a set of direction that's a listen, we need to do this for the next 5 years. Every district governor has his own plan. Every club president has his own plan. No one is thinking about the future of clubs. Everybody's concerned only about his or her year. So these are examples. Why is club development necessary? Because these risks that plague clubs result in drifts in direction or no direction at all. Remember, direction is where you want to take the club in the future. No continuity. Annual goals are not anchored on a long-term direction. Everybody has a different direction for the club. Low levels of member satisfaction result. We have erosion in standards of behavior and conduct. We have internal conflicts. We have lack of accountability, resulting in declining levels of membership engagement and membership decline. So what is the purpose of club development? Club development is an investment in the future of clubs. It revisits the club building questions to build a consensus that is no longer there because the consensus breaks down over time. So we have to revisit these things and rebuild the consensus that is no longer there. It reaffirms the shared understanding, ownership of key principles that hold the club together. It determines where a club is trending, and it redirects its course in keeping with whatever the current realities are for that particular club. Club development seeks to create a shared commitment to the club's future by engaging in a club building exercise. People will call it strategic planning, etc. I prefer to call it club building. It creates a club's future by faithfully navigating the path for club development. Once you have you can define a path to club development, but if you don't pursue it, you'll never get there. It's something on paper, but if it is not pursued faithfully, if we don't navigate the course, then of course we'll never get there. The club building exercise consists of these different things. We need to clarify the mission. We need to adopt realignments in governance. That means we need to make adjustments to our constitution. We need to update the vision and values. We need to redefine some of the key focus areas, reformulate strategic goals, update policies and guidelines, identify the things that we have to, key success factors, that is the things we need to concentrate on in order to succeed, develop action plans, develop and implement annual goals. So this basically is the club rebuilding exercise. Now, many of you would say, well, what's to clarify about our service mission? Well, I could tell you there's a lot of stuff to clarify. How many members have ever said, I didn't come into the club to hold any office, I came to serve? Or, I didn't come into the Lions Club to make any contributions to LCIF. I came to serve. That means, you hear this all the time. We don't understand what service means as a group. We are not of one mind about what service means. First thing is that service means fulfilling the obligations of membership. Service to the community is the mission of Lions Clubs International. But what is the service that we require of Lions to fulfill that mission of service? We need them to be able to fulfill the obligations of membership. That's what we want them to do. So that's what service means for every single Lion, to fulfill the obligations of membership. I don't have the obligations listed here, but some of the things I'm talking about really reflect that. I presented those to the last set of governors and so on, that because I gave a presentation there. But creating value and benefits to the community, we know that we do that through projects. Adding value to enhance the quality of the membership experience, that's serving. So when you contribute to the well-being of your members and to fellowship and good, you're serving. You're serving when you're doing that. Because that's what service means, fulfilling the obligations of membership. Adding value for the benefit of the club by serving position of responsibility and leadership. That is serving. Adding value by raising funds to help finance club programs. I've had many members say, I can't raise any funds. I came to serve. So, but fulfilling the obligation means assisting to the best of your ability in doing whatever is necessary to keep a club strong and healthy. Contributing financial support to your club. When you're asked to do something to the extent that you're able financially, you make a contribution here, you contribute some ackee and saltfish there, whatever the case is. And you contribute to LCAF to strengthen our foundation. So we need to agree on what service means for each individual member in our clubs. So that's when we revisit, we clarify our mission so that we can all be on one mind as to what service means in a Lions Club. We have to adopt realignments in governance. We have to update our constitution and bylaws to include mandatory provisions from LCI. We have to clarify roles and responsibilities that are ambiguous or source of conflict. Sometimes things are written and become conflicting, so we have to clarify that. We have to update roles or filling gaps in roles not properly covered by the Constitution. For example, in the club constitution, and I guess in the district constitution, there's no provision for a club development committee in the standard form constitution. So, for many of us, if Lions International has not provided for club development as a committee in our constitution, then it cannot be important. But club development is an essential function, as essential as finance or membership or whatever. It's the committee where you bring a lot of the officers and everybody together, because this is the unifying, club development is the unifying concept that keeps the club functioning. We have to clarify our vision and our values. Here's an example. I don't know if I'll read all of this. An example of a vision, for example, to say, our vision is to have a healthy club providing impactful service. I make that. I like this because I use this in a lot of my workshops. That is my sense of what the vision is for clubs. But you can develop your own, obviously. And then your core values. We are committed to adding value to the lives of those who serve, our members and our club. We value an inclusive club, open to persons ready, willing, and able to fulfill the obligations of membership. We value productive relationships that strengthen membership cooperation and collaboration. We place a high value on a membership experience that is satisfying and rewarding. And we are committed to upholding the Lions Code of Ethics and the ideals of spouses. Every meeting I go to since I've been alive, people are always reciting this code of ethics, but we're not living up to it. What's the point of reciting something if we're not living up to it? If we don't live up to it, then we are not fulfilling the obligations of membership. And our clubs are not going to function effectively because we read something. Strategic focus areas. What are the areas on which we need to focus? Now, we have to focus on certain areas when we engage externally, and we have to focus on certain areas when we engage internally. Now, these are examples. It doesn't have to be the external focus areas need not be what I have here. For example, service outreach and impact. You said this is a focus area. So that's an area where we're going to develop goals on this. We're going to develop goals on service outreach and impact. Club reputation and appeal. That means we have to be able to appeal to a variety of outside stakeholders. We have to be able to appeal to prospects. We have to be able to appeal to partners, service partners. We have to be able to appeal to people who donate. We need to be able to appeal to other people who contribute resources, etc. And we have to have access to funding. So, okay, these are areas on which we need to focus for club development purposes. And for internal engagement, we need to build our leadership. Everybody knows that. We need to build our membership strength. We need to build the financial health of our clubs. We need to have a much more engaging or enabling club culture. And we need to reduce risk to club health. Now, I've taken all of these and I've tried to give some examples. I don't know that I have time in my 20 minutes to be able to deal with all of the examples, but let's take service outreach and impact. Expand community service outreach and impact. You can set a goal that says, revamp the club's service portfolio in 2 years to include a signature project for which the club will become well-known and widely publicly supported. So if a club says, in terms of development, this is where we want to go, then each president who comes after needs to build annual objectives to support this, because we want to accomplish this in 2 years in terms of the direction we want to take. In terms of our appeal, we could say, achieve in 5 years a positive public rating of 5 on 10, identifying the club as a place where I would like to serve. If you did a survey, I know many of us would not do any survey, but if you look at different people who you think are prospects, and you say, you know, is a Lions Club, we ask several questions, of course, but you may ask a question about whether they like to serve in a Lions Club. And if you're getting people who you think are eligible, and you're only getting 2 of 10 saying they would like to serve, you know, you really have a problem. So you can say, listen, we want to be at least 5 on 10 for something like this. We want to achieve in 5 years a positive public rating of 7 on 10, identifying the club as a community resource I would support. So this is the public saying, this is you saying, I want the public to identify us on a high scale as a community resource they would like to support. They said this is a long-range goal. What then do you need to do annually to be able to accomplish this? Access to funding. Develop the capability to raise 10,000 annually from a broader base of financial supporters in 5 years. You have your base right now, but you want to broaden it if you want to raise more money, because you may have a very limited base. And if you're going to do this, you say, okay, we have to have some annual plans. That means if you don't have people with the connections in your club right now to be able to do this, then you have to concentrate on that going forward to get people who could help with this if you don't have it now. Leadership strength through recruitment and training, develop in 5 years a pool of trained leaders to assume responsibility, positions of responsibility in clubs, etc., with 0 vacancies. So you set a goal. In 5 years, we want to be able to accomplish that. Every president and every district governor must annually set goals to support this. Not everybody going off in their own direction. Clubs cannot survive doing that. So in membership strength, same thing. You know, we want to increase the membership composition to achieve 25% of members under the age of 40 in 5 years. Okay, then you have to set up some action plans to accomplish that. But every year we need to have annual goals to support this. Financial health. We want to generate enough income to meet the normal and reasonable administrative expenses and financial obligations on a current basis. When a club develops its budget, it's developed its budget based upon the number of members in the club times the dues. Now, obviously, if the dues are not paid, the club is not going to be able to function to meet that budget. So we say we want to reduce delinquency in dues payment from 20% to 5% in 2 years, so we could have more money to spend. We're not increasing the dues. This goal is not increasing the dues. This goal is simply saying we want to collect more of the current dues from members so we can keep the club functioning financially. Club culture. We want to achieve a satisfaction rate of 75% among members in 5 years. We want to adopt policies and procedures in 2 years for holding members accountable for their performance and their conduct. This will include due process guidelines to be observed when imposing sanctions for unacceptable performance. You need to agree as a club. You can't just try to discipline members. You have to agree as a club that we are going to have certain standards of behavior and what the consequences are, so that when you impose sanctions on people, it's based upon an understanding or set of guidelines that the club has adopted. If you don't have this, how are you going to take any action against people who are poisoning your organization? I know many members may not want that because they may be friendly with those people, but still, this is what we need to do. Moving on. There are certain things that are called critical success factors. That means if you have a particular objective, whatever the objective is, you have to ask yourself the question, what are the things on which I need to be able to do well to get this objective accomplished? So, in many cases, you may have to strengthen your club appeal to your prospects, your service beneficiaries, your donors, your partners, and all. So you may have to strengthen that because you say, listen, you know, with respect to external engagement, we want to raise funds, we want to be an appeal to prospective members, etc. We want to have access to funding. So we have to work on these capabilities. Increase the club's capability to access funding, resources, and connections. You can't simply say, we don't have them now. You're thinking about the future. That means you have to make some changes. And one of the difficulties that many clubs have, I'm ashamed to say it, but it is true, that many people really don't want the club to be better than it is because they feel that they stand a chance of getting into a particular position. And if you bring people into the club with capabilities that they don't have, then they're not likely to rise in the movement. So it's like a vicious cycle that you have where people don't want to have better people, or people, not necessarily better people. I don't mean better people. What I mean, people with certain skills and capabilities who could make a greater impact than they can. So moving right along. If you set certain, these are again critical success factors for internal things that you want to do. The competencies and capabilities of your members, very important. The level of commitment and engagement. You can have a membership, but if people are not engaged, you're not going to have anything happen. You have to have effective internal processes, effective communication and teamwork. That is very important. People must be accountable for their performance and conduct. The quality of performance and results is important. Creativity, innovation, and adaptability to change is important. And robust knowledge transfer systems. Just to say what that basically, what does it mean by robust? Well, every club has a knowledge base. One of the critical challenges that clubs have is that they don't have effective ways. One knowledge transfer system, for example, is orientation. You orient new members. So what you're doing, you're taking knowledge from the existing members and you're transferring that to new members. Same thing is true if you orientation of officers. How do we transfer things from the knowledge base to new officers? Again, you use the orientation process. Recently, the District 60B adopted an email system for club officers. That is a knowledge transfer mechanism. It allows an incoming officer occupying that same position to have access to the correspondence and all the things that went on in a particular office. So that's a knowledge transfer. It's not just an administrative thing. It is also a knowledge transfer kind of mechanism. So we have to think of, and the fact that you have a constitution and you have policies, those are not transfer mechanisms because you can come into a club, but nobody ever tells you about them. So we're looking at mechanisms that enable people to have access to the knowledge base of a club. So that's what this knowledge transfer system means. When this thing doesn't function, at the end of a particular administration, we have to have an administrative transfer. I mean, I know we go through the motion right now, but how much of the knowledge from one administration gets transferred to the next, that's a big question. But there can be no continuity in a club if we don't strengthen our knowledge transfer systems within the organization, whether it's members, what you know about the history, or what we know about the processes, or what we know about what the policies are, what the constitution is, etc., and so on. So these are very critical and very important things. We need to revamp policies. I mentioned before that we have to have uniform standards and guidelines for club recognition awards. Every president cannot decide the criteria, or district governor for that matter. How could the criteria for giving out annual awards in a club be something that changes from year to year? You have to have criteria. If you have a Lion of the Year, the club needs to decide what the criteria is for Lion of the Year. That's not the district governor could decide that, or president on his own. So you need standards. And when the club decides on standards, those are the standards for the club. We have to develop performance expectations for persons accepting positions of responsibility. Yes, we have responsibilities, but we need to further refine those things to say what we expect of you. What is the standard of performance we expect of you? We don't want to have a situation where you're supposed to have meetings and you don't show up. We need to develop ground rules to define acceptable conduct in clubs and meetings. And then hold people to those standards, have also identified what the consequences are if you violate these things. And so I mentioned before in an earlier slide, develop guidelines for holding members accountable for their performance. And this includes guidelines relating to imposing consequences and sanctions for unacceptable performance or behavior, and the due process procedure that will be followed with it. You can't take arbitrary actions against people. If they do something, you have to have due process. But you adopt a due process procedure that basically says, and almost every club today needs this. I mean, I've been working with District 21 in New York. A former Lion from 60B is now the district, and she's having so many problems with members. Some of the stuff I can't even repeat, you know what I'm saying, of people who are tearing the club apart. One person, sometimes in the club, is doing that. And nobody is willing to take any action against these individuals. But the thing is that we become what we tolerate. We must never forget that we become what we tolerate. We can't say it's the other person. If you're tolerating it, then you are it. So, why is club development a challenge for clubs? Well, because we are trapped in this recurring cycle of annual goals. It's a trap that limit our perspective to 1 year time horizon. So we only think in 1 year gaps. We don't think about the future of a club. Or certainly our leaders do. Clubs see no value in making an investment in their future by linking annual goals to strategic goals that define the club's desired future state. The result is that we have no vision of where we're going, and we have no prescription for a path to development in future clubs. Club governance instruments do not provide for club development as a necessary and desirable club function. And as I said before, if LCI does not see the wisdom of providing for club development, then we probably conclude that it must not be important. But we have to use our own gray matter in many things relating to Lions clubs. Many of the people who serve at Lions clubs are not Lions. 75% are not Lions. They're not experiencing the activities of a Lions club. They are people who are brought in from, they're not themselves Lions. So when we see that there's something affecting us, you can make changes in your constitution and it makes sense. And I would like to see the district playing a much larger role in undertaking this kind of initiative. Getting started with club development. I have some suggestions. This presentation that I will not be making this presentation available just to every individual life. This presentation, or an extended version of it, I will actually prepared it for the VGG seminar that's coming up. That's why I prepared this thing. And when I was asked by Nicholas, I said, well, why not sort of whet the appetite of the members and clubs? And so I decided that I would do a subset of this particular presentation. But my intention is to see the extent to which the incoming, whether the outgoing and incoming district officers support this kind of initiative, this club development initiative. If they do, then, and they want to modify it, that's fine. Then I could make it available. But I'm not prepared to make anything available as Malcolm Culver. I don't hold any office. And club development is not going to work without technical assistance from the district. It's no point having an objective and saying, clubs we want, sometimes the capability is not there. So we can't, that's not the way for the future. We can't just set goals and expect clubs to follow it because sometimes the capability is not there. So what do we need to do? Clubs need tools, samples, models, templates, and examples to illustrate the good practices they need to implement. So what a district governor should do is that when he or she has some development initiative, he should arrange to provide clubs with technical resource kits. That's my proposal. Here is a technical resource kit that has examples and stuff of how you can rely on to help you achieve this particular goal. And the club so we need a district club development committee that should be a standing committee to help develop these resources for the benefit of clubs. So when a district governor has a goal, he just said, this is my goal. Well, this is your goal, yes, but do the clubs have the capability to do it? Clubs need help, I'm telling you. And you all know this. So we need some resources then We need this technical resource kit that will be communicated to clubs and say, here is a toolkit that can help you achieve this particular goal. And then we need to have training people who can help, not everybody doing their own training, as we now do in the district. Everybody is training, but we are not together. You go to one training on one subject, you go to another subject, and people saying different things. We have to speak with one voice about where we need to be. So we need this club development committee that will support initiatives of the district governors by providing club with resources, not just talk. There's too much talk going. You're going to every talk. Clubs don't need any more talk. They need tools that can be presented to them to enable them to accomplish their goals and objectives. The committee will need to draw on relevant expertise and available technical assistance within the district to carry out this, and include people like the GAT and so on that particular committee. But you need, in addition to GAT members, depending upon what their background is, you need to draw on what the relevant expertise is to be sure that this continues. And we need to ensure that there's some continuity in terms of who's on that committee to ensure that this knowledge transfer system works. Because again, people come and they go, everybody's new, and there's no knowledge transfer that takes place. We can't function that way. There's no continuity. So this team will interface with and provide support to clubs, the club development committees at the club level as they spearhead their club development initiatives. To start, the DG should make a recommendation to all clubs to provide for club development committee as a standing committee in their constitution. Nothing can happen without this. Unless it is a mandatory function to be formed in club and you say what the responsibilities are, the DG should provide the clubs with a model amendment. You can't just, again, we have to provide clubs with tools to help them. You can't just say it and expect it to happen. But even if you put it together, you still may not, but you stand a better chance if you provide them with the model and say, here's a model amendment for your constitution that provides for club development committee, and here is functions, etc., etc., etc. You can make changes, etc., and so on. I'm not saying if you do this, the clubs are going to do it, but they're less likely to do it if they don't have the tools to facilitate it happening. Its function will be to oversee the long-term future development of clubs, drawing on the district technical assistance team serving as a resource. It should be chaired by the club's second vice president. Do you know, if you read the district constitution right now, and the club standard form constitution, you know there are a lot of responsibilities that are put on the vice president of a club. The vice president of the club is supposed to undertake annual club assessments and all kinds of stuff. So, but the district governor and the zone chairs are visiting clubs and telling them, oh, you need to do a club assessment. And maybe many of those zone chairs have never looked at the constitution of a club to see who is responsible. And maybe some of the district governors themselves don't know that the vice president, the second vice president of a club, has a responsibility to do a club assessment, so that he or she would have information for his own year. But I'm going beyond this annual year thing. We need that, yes, but we also need a club development assessment, which is a different kind of instrument together. I have information on what that would look like. So training should be developed to introduce clubs to club development process and the resources available from the district development team. Moving right along, finally, I think this is my second to last slide. The members of this committee should include club officers and club committee chairs, members of GAT, and members who, plus you need a statistician. This cannot work without a person who accepts the responsibility as a statistician. What is the role of the statistician? The role of the statistician is to, when data is collected, to compile the data, develop trends over a period of time, and provide reports. The committee would provide reports to club officers and say, these are the trends in this, these are the trends in that. This is the trend in. When you collect the data, we need somebody to compile it and look at what's happening from year to year so we could understand what's going on in clubs. There should be staggered terms to provide continuity. It should oversee the periodic strategic planning exercise to develop a 3-year strategic plan with the aid of an outside facilitator. Again, clubs should not attempt to try and do this for themselves. If you're going to do any club building, you need a facilitator to help with this club development exercise. You need an outside, well, the reason you need an outside, because there's a whole lot of differences of opinion, and that, so you need an outside person to help to channel all that, all those differences into a productive exercise, so that we come out with something where we can build some kind of consensus within the club. So the club development assessment, this club development assessment is different from just the annual thing. And at some other time, I can share that kind of information with the incoming district officers and say, here's what an annual assessment looks like, but here's what a club development assessment looks like. The strategic goals in the plan should provide mandatory guidance for club presidents in setting annual goals. One of the issues that we have in clubs right now is that leaders have taken over the responsibilities of members. It is up to the membership of a club to determine its direction, not the president. You have to build consensus within a club and say, listen, this is where we want to be. This is the kind of club a district governor cannot decide this is the kind of club we want to have. That doesn't make any sense. This is a voluntary organization. So the leader, he cannot decide what kind of club we want to have. It is a question that has to be debated. You said the values and the club values and the club's vision. These are things that have to be decided by the club, not by the leader. The leader would facilitate and make it happen. So when a leader exercises his or her responsibility, he or she should be leading the club to do these kinds of things. Leading the club to arrive at consensus on where we want to go, not imposing his or her vision of where the club ought to go as the club's vision. That doesn't make any sense. So I think the club development committee, it should do the periodic club assessment, and it should be annual club assessment. The data should be compiled into trends for the benefit of the sitting president, the club boards, incoming zone chairs, and the DGs. This is a tall order here. And how much of this is possible, I really don't know, but I know this is the ideal. And it is up to the leaders to determine how much of this ideal we can actually accomplish. And this committee should oversee an annual club retreat at which the incoming president will present his or her program for the year to ensure alignment with the strategic plan and get input of club members. Club presidents do not and should not have the power to determine on his or her own the future of a club. The president has a responsibility to engage members, get the ideas, and from that, determine the club direction. I could ask the question, how many of you have ever been part of a club discussion about the kind of club you deserve to have? Have you ever had a president that said, listen, let's just take this meeting and discuss the kind of club we want to have, we want to create? I don't know how many of you have ever had. I've never had it. I never had it. How many of you know where your club wants to be in the future and how it plans to get there? Has any president or district governor ever asked this question about where you want to be in 5 years? Well, if you don't know where you're going, then you're wandering blindly into the future because we have no direction. There's no agreement. Remember, agreement and consensus is important for people to come together and work together. The more consensus and agreement, the greater the likelihood that people will work together to achieve that particular goal or object. The future of clubs cannot depend on leaders who annually define a club's future in their own image. The priority of district leaders must shift to enabling and facilitating the development of clubs, not by telling them what to do, saying this is my goal. A district governor should enable clubs, not tell them, enable clubs. And where to enable them is not to talk or to say we're going to have workshops. Merely the workshops we have, you know, you have workshops, and I don't have no problem with having the workshop. You have everybody coming to workshops. That's fine. But the question is, how many of those people are part of the leadership that's coming in? You have all this training going on, but how many of them are part of the leadership of the club coming in, benefiting from that leadership or that training? We have to be sure that the people who are making the decisions within a club or within are trained, not just everybody. So, and there should be a certain kind of training on which we need to focus when we deal with incoming officers and stuff. Not just, you know, I mean, I know you need a team building. Club development needs to be an important part of that. Not just some of these other things, because you need to focus on the future. Shaping your future needs to be a part of every training for officers coming in, whether at the club level or at the district level. Future, 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 future. Not just this year, this year, this year, this year. So we need a paradigm shift from leading by telling to leading by showing and enabling. Imagine the possibilities if clubs had a defined future that is enabled by district club development support. We could be in a different place. We could be in a different place. What we need to just change the paradigm. Begin by focusing on where do we want to be? What kind of club do we deserve? You're in a club. Ask your president, Mr. President, we need to discuss what kind of club we deserve to be in. I think now is the time to come together. I hope you're ready for this paradigm shift that I'm suggesting. Let us embrace our future together. Thank you very much, Mr. Line District Governor. That's the end of my presentation.